Zodiac ends without the thing a crime story is supposed to deliver. There is no arrest, no confession, and no piece of evidence strong enough to close the case.
Instead, Robert Graysmith walks into a hardware store, looks Arthur Lee Allen in the eye, and silently decides that the search is over.
The scene feels like an answer. But legally, it is not one. That tension is the key to the ending.
The film is not asking whether Graysmith can prove who the Zodiac was.
It is asking why he needs one face badly enough to accept uncertainty.
By the final minutes, catching the killer is no longer the only goal.
Ending the obsession has become just as important.
The legal case remains open, but Graysmith needs his own ending, and the film makes us feel how tempting that private certainty can be. At first, the case looks like a puzzle that can be solved.
Letters arrive. Ciphers are printed. Reporters, detectives, and amateur codebreakers all believe the next clue will force the chaos into a pattern.
But the case never behaves like a clean mystery.
Different police departments protect different files.
Witnesses remember different faces. Handwriting, fingerprints, timelines, and phone calls refuse to point in one direction at the same time. That is why the investigation becomes so corrosive.
Every new fact feels like progress for a few minutes, then opens another path. The Zodiac controls the story because he can create attention faster than the institutions can create certainty. Everyone else is forced to live inside an unfinished sentence.
The mystery grows not because there are no facts, but because the facts never agree strongly enough to become a verdict. The most disturbing thing about the film is that the obsession does not belong to one man. Paul Avery turns the killer into a public spectacle, then becomes consumed by the threat. Dave Toschi treats the case as professional duty, but years without an answer grind that duty into exhaustion. Graysmith begins as the quiet cartoonist who likes puzzles. Eventually, he becomes the person who cannot stop. His marriage, his children, and his sense of safety all become secondary to the question of identity.
Film Faultline looks for the hidden choice inside great movies.
Here, Graysmith's choice is not to solve one more clue.
It is to keep living as though the answer is always one clue away.
Each investigator can leave, but the case simply finds another person willing to carry it, which is how obsession survives across years. The basement sequence shows what the search has done to him.
Graysmith visits Bob Vaughn because a handwriting sample appears to connect Vaughn's associate to the Zodiac. Then Vaughn calmly reveals that the handwriting is his own.
The theory collapses in a single sentence. But Graysmith does not feel relief. He notices the basement, remembers that few California homes have one, hears footsteps above him, and rebuilds the threat around a different man.
The scene is frightening because Vaughn may be dangerous. It is more frightening because Graysmith can no longer tell the difference between evidence and a pattern created by fear. His instinct is now trained to convert every coincidence into a door that might finally lead to the killer. The search has trained him to fear any answer that does not preserve the search, even when the evidence points away from danger. Arthur Lee Allen is not a random conclusion. The watch, the places he lived, the dates when the letters stopped and returned, his proximity to Darlene Ferrin, and Michael Mageau's later identification all make him the strongest suspect in Graysmith's reconstruction. The film deliberately builds that case. It wants us to feel the same pull he feels. But it also keeps the contradictions visible. The handwriting does not match. The fingerprints do not match. The identification comes decades later and contains hesitation. Toschi understands the difference between believing and proving.
Graysmith asks him to speak as a man, not as a cop, because he already knows the official standard will never give him the answer he wants.
Allen may be the best explanation. The film refuses to turn that into certainty.
The film makes Allen persuasive enough for closure, but never conclusive enough for justice, and that distinction is deliberate. That is why the final stare in the hardware store matters.
Graysmith does not confront Allen, question him, or produce new evidence. He only looks. Allen looks back.
For Graysmith, that private recognition is enough to release years of pressure.
The later photo identification gives the audience one more push toward the same conclusion, but the case itself remains legally unfinished. Zodiac's ending is not about catching the killer. It is about the human need to replace uncertainty with a story that can finally stop. Graysmith gets a face. The audience gets a suspect. The law gets nothing it can use. The killer may never be conclusively named, but the obsession has already taken marriages, careers, health, and decades of attention. That is the only victory the film proves beyond doubt. The mystery survives, but everyone who carried it has already been changed by the need to finish what may never be finished.